So, welcome everybody. We are going to do another team up playthrough with MathyNoodles. We're going to play, well, I have War Machine loaded up. Maybe we'll play She-Hulk if we have time. But we have your War Machine deck that you've actually been playing as your official games. You're, what, 2 out of 3 games at this point done?
Yeah, that's right. I've been playing this. I've been going back and forth between She-Hulk and War Machine basically all around. I played a lot of test games with both of them, but I think I finally decided on War Machine. I can get him just a little bit consistently faster than She-Hulk, like during all of my testing, just because the base damage in this kit is just so completely out of control, ridiculous. It sometimes doesn't line up. So like there are some like extreme edge case consistency issues there if you like really don't line up the events, or like you have issues with ammo spenders versus like ammo counters and like actually gaining ammo counters in the first place. But for the most part, like in all my testing, I've done a decent amount of test games. Like War Machine's a little bit quicker in this scenario.
Right, and I played one game of each of She-Hulk and War Machine, so I did this round, so I didn't have too much experience, right? So War Machine kind of has, once you get a few of his upgrades out, you have that way to get your ongoing sources of damage, reliable sources of damage, and he does have some thwarting events in his kit that are much more effective than what She-Hulk has. Um, She-Hulk, if you are trying to flip every turn, She-Hulk does have that really nice flipping ability when she flips in terms of kind of another consistent source of damage, and that 3 attack is amazing. But you're right, like she does not bring consistency overall.
Yeah, exactly. If there are bursts of threat, you like really need to rely on thwarting events from Justice and such. That's kind of the same case with War Machine, because he only really has the one thwarting event. It's a good thwarting event, but and you can always shuffle it back in with the AE ability. But it's kind of it's kind of the same case with both of these characters, though. That's why I think I was testing them both and was able to kind of seamlessly go back and forth between them.
Right.
You don't want to flip necessarily every single turn with War Machine, but the more you can, the better. And a lot of my test games, I actually did end up flipping every single turn with him, just because I had some stuff to kind of mitigate instantly losing from flipping. But did kind of a similar package with both characters with a few differences. And one of those differences we'll talk about in a second. But for the most part, neither of them have really great thwarting in their base kit. So I added a few thwarting events from Justice to kind of take care of that. Clear the area, which is like, the Darling thwarting card. Spend one, like draw one if you clear the scheme off. It's always super great. And
super near to my heart, that one.
Oh, yeah, it's so fantastic. Such a ridiculous card. And then usually with Justice, if I want thwarting, especially if I'm running the one way or another package to get that card draw, which is almost an auto-include in every deck now, except for a few scenarios where like side schemes are just like minimal, if not anything. For the most part, you want to add that. And with that, I usually like doing multitasking, just so I can, it's just so much bang for your buck when it comes to thwart removal. But 3 out of the 4 side schemes being at 3 starting threat, and pings for threat being a little bit awkward to get a lot of the time, unless you have a specific ally out, or if you want to do like a suboptimal activation with War Machine on his hero side. It's not always the greatest. So I actually opted for Impede instead to just get that 3 threat threshold just under control, potentially with just a single event card. The only difference between the 2 decks I was doing, this deck actually has 3 copies of Global Logistics in it, which is an absolutely insanely, ridiculously overpowered card if you can get it off consistently.
Yep.
It's basically it's even better than a Heimdall effect for a 0 cost and an exhaust. And because War Machine is a shield on his alter ego side, you can basically get it, especially if you're trying to flip every single turn. You can get it off any given turn very easily. Also got some other shield allies in there and stuff to help get that off instead if we want to. But it's just a crazy card.
It's interesting. War Machine probably has one of the least valuable activations of kind of any character in terms of using, exhausting them to do him to do other stuff. You don't care that you've lost that activation compared to most other heroes the same way, right? Like using his shield ability in AE, great. That's super productive.
Exactly. Yeah, he definitely has some of the worst activations of any hero, like you were saying. Not really anything in his base kit that like helps with those activations. Pretty weak stat line overall with a 1/2/2 and then a 3 recovery. So yeah, if you can get more value out of his activation somewhere else, like with global logistics, yeah, that would be absolutely insane. If
Yeah.
we weren't running global logistics and or justice in this package, I would even maybe consider running meditation for him, just because he's flipping so often and he's a little bit resource weak in some cases if you don't get his gauntlets out.
Well, and he has some big upgrades, right? Um, you know, there's some two costers that you don't actually mind throwing at meditation based on the discussion we're just having. It doesn't have to always be the three costers either. But if you're running the shield package, there's definitely some three cost stuff that you want to be able to get down. So that's amazing. We won't dwell on this one, but I think we've been having some conversations in our alliance chat about multitasking versus clear the area, and you're bringing in Impede as a really, you made a really good case for using Impede here. I know for me, if there's no threat on the initial main scheme, multitasking's value goes way down in my eyes. Like the because that first explosive turn, getting one way or another down, and then being able to actually do something productive with your thwarting cards, it's amazing how much multitasking value just changes from my perspective. That little initial thwarting not being there is just like, nope, multitasking's out, clear the areas in.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean the only thing that is a little bit anti-synergistic with Impede is the fact that usually you want to do, well, obviously you want to do one way for another first to get the card draw, but
Yeah.
if you play that first, then you don't get the kicker from Impede where you get it back into your hand if it's the first card you play. But I think it's still worth it. When you just need threat off the scheme, it's way better. You're essentially just paying one for it, and then yeah, you can still do it in a pinch. Like 2 for 3 threat removal, especially in like a kit like this, is still worth it in a lot of cases. With those 3 out of 4 side schemes being 3 starting threats. So yeah, no,
Love it.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll get started. I mean, the one last observation I was going to make is just the one of the things that the shield Justice Shell excels at is actually removing one threat, and your games have been relatively fast, so obviously you're not getting a full setup. But if you're just kind of thinking of what the shell can do, Monica Chang and what's the thing that she pulls out? What's the
Oh, surveillance team, I believe, is the name of the
yeah,
card.
surveillance team, right? Those are all one really good at thwarting one, and so there you have pretty good access to that kind of ping thwart with the shell, just broadly speaking, not necessarily in this specific situation. But that's just another observation I've made with the shield shell. So the shield shell kind of synergizes really well with clear the area from that perspective, because you can do a little bit of ping thwart to set up your clear the areas because of the shield shell.
Yeah, exactly. And if, like you were saying, if this was a longer game, I would have considered it. I actually, honestly, did just consider it for those pings, just because that is like a decent amount of value. But yeah, I'm ending these games in usually 4, 5, maximum 6 turns,
Right.
and for the most part, you just really can't get that value out of Monica Chain. So
Right. Is what's yeah. Global logistics is relying on War Machine's AE, often. All right, welcome back. We are taking a mulligan on our first deal because we had a long discussion about using global logistics, and then realized that, oh darn, once you actually use global logistics and then flip and then use one way or another, you've just kind of messed up the whole plan anyway. So we're gonna start again and not consider that and see what we can get to happen here. So we've got an initial hand that does not include one way or another. A counterintelligence targeted strike, shoulder cannon, Eros, I don't know which, Greek, so probably a O. Clear the area and scorched earth. I mean, obviously shoulder cannon pays off extremely well. Beyond that, I mean, I don't see an argument for keeping any of the rest of this stuff. I mean, we might be able to get into one way or another and then clear the area matters, but if we don't, then it's annoying to have kept it.
Yeah, exactly. And there are more of the deck too. So I agree with you. I would say ditch all of this. Targeted strike. We'll want to shuffle back into the deck with War Machine's AE ability.
Love it.
Just because,
yep.
Yeah, definitely want that thwart later in the game. But everything else, that's all threat removal that we don't really need right now. So
okay, so
draw back up.
So you like keeping shoulder cannon though?
Yeah, definitely like keeping shoulder cannon. That is, if you can get shoulder cannon out basically at any point in the game, that's usually all the damage you need to actually end it a lot of the times. It's just so efficient. It's great for clearing off tough. The damage you end up doing with it is absolutely ridiculous. You don't have to worry about like actually drawing into ammo spenders. So
yeah, it's especially in a game where you are going to be able to flip a ton. It is quite remarkable. Okay, a little stinky of an initial hand. Now here we could actually use global logistics because we did not actually draw into one way or another. Okay, so we're at start of the game. Before we flip, we can shuffle the targeted strike in. We don't have any other things that actually draw us any cards at the moment anyway, so we can just do that now, I think.
Yep.
So we shuffle that in. Okay, so back to our global logistics discussion. Since we don't have one way or another, do we global logistics?
I would argue definitely yes, because now we can actually set it up without shuffling afterwards. So yeah, let's definitely do global logistics, see what we got on the top of the encounter library.
Okay, so what we see is a Hydra Mercenary, which has a 1 boost and guard, hard to keep down, which is the heal, and then if no heal, it surges. We're obviously going to do a damage, so we could actually set that up potentially if we wanted to. Sandman, better as a boost than an encounter, and Stampede, which is a Rhino attack card. So let me just talk through this real quick, and then let's see what you, as the more experienced player, might think. So, kind of, let's go return to our hand. We don't have any allies yet, and we don't have any way to actually draw. So, really want to think about this first attack, and if we might actually just want to take the attack or defend the attack. What's his? He has 2 defense. Okay, so we could potentially even plan to defend the attack if we really wanted to. So one of these known cards as a boost card maybe is not terrible. Knowing we've already lost our activation and probably aren't going to do... What are we going to do here? I guess we're probably going to use something like... Sorry, we might use something like Repulsor Beam, so we might actually do some damage, which means... hard to keep down as the encounter card might be a bit annoying and counterproductive, but yeah, what are you thinking?
So here's a huge reason I love global logistics, because seeing and setting up the encounter cards, you can set up for like pretty absolutely insane plays if you kind of like suss it out a little bit. So hard to keep down. You heal 4 damage if he was healed for 0 damage as card gains surge. So what I'm actually thinking is we actually set up the boost cards as the 1 cards, either Hydra Mercenary or Stampede in any order.
Yep.
For the encounter card, we actually keep hard to keep down. If we're going to play Shoulder Cannon this turn, which I'm guessing we will, as we flip over, we can ping him for 1 damage, and then he just heals the 1 with the encounter card. Right. That's pretty good for an encounter card. That's like extreme low value. In terms of defending with Mr. James Rode, I don't really ever like defending with him because we're flipping so often that it's more valuable to just use the recover instead for his activation if that's where we land.
Fair enough. So with the cards we have in our hand,
Mm-hmm.
after we do this setup, we can easily play both of the 2-cost upgrades that we have. Um,
Mm-hmm.
right, because I was looking at what do we have that's useful in our hand. We could play Repulsor Beam, and then that would be counterproductive to the hard to keep down. But what I will infer from what you're arguing is that we're going to want to play these 2 upgrades, um, do a ping with hard to keep down, and then we're kind of setting ourselves up for future.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Repulsor beam is really good, efficient damage, but yeah. In this case, we're just going to want to get the 2 upgrades. They're both really valuable, especially if you get them extremely early. So yeah.
Okay. So looking forward to the second turn because actually, if we just keep all of these and just reorder them, we can set up our next turn. I'm typically inclined to assume, well, we might want to actually flip back next turn, but I'm typically inclined to assume, I'm going to have a blocker and want to, Sandman hitting the blocker is not so bad. Um, Having Hydra Mercenary come out, knowing how much damage is in Rhodey's kit is actually not too bad, and since he can really choose how much damage to do things, guard is kind of not a big deal. So I would be inclined to try to set up Hydra Mercenary as my turn to encounter card. So this is just my inclination. We'll hear what you're thinking. So we've got hard to keep down. We're saying we want to set that up as an encounter, knowing that we're just going to take this first attack to the face. I'm thinking Stampede, so we'll take 3 damage, and then, like you said, recover 3 can deal with that in the future. Then we have Sandman set up for a boost card next turn, which was basically we're probably not going to try to flip next turn, though even if we do, we know exactly what the amount of scheme is going to be.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm more inclined to flip basically every turn now, just because if we're going to get the shoulder cannon out, that's the most efficient use of
Yeah.
our
Tons of
potential.
damage.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see when we actually go ahead and do it. I would be inclined to because basically, no matter what, we're probably going to be spending all our ammo next turn. Yeah, with that in mind, I almost want to say maybe we should just flip Sandman and Hydra Mercenary. It's only 2 extra damage that we need to deal with on that, which we definitely have. Tough doesn't really matter because we've got the shoulder cannon, and then when he schemes, it'll just be for 1.
Right. So this will be what we're basically doing is making the choice of needing to do 2 more damage instead of 1 more thwart.
Yeah, and I think that's worth it, especially in this deck. We have some good thwarting events and some good stuff, but it's not always consistent. Now with the Gatling gun, we definitely have the shoulder cannon. We definitely have consistent damage. So I think this sets us up better in the future.
Sure. This is one of those ones where the practical experience of playing the deck, you just kind of have a sense of how much easier or harder thwart is, knowing for sure that we have access to damage in this deck already because we're going to have the shoulder cannon out definitely means we're going to be we're going to have the exact right amount of ammo to deal with Sandman anyway. So yeah, that seems I buy it. I buy it. Okay, so we ditch that. We've already shuffled the 1 card that we wanted to shuffle back in, and then we flip. We get our 5 counters after we change form. This game does this automatically. We bring out our shoulder cannon and our gauntlet gun, and then I think that's everything. Hey, we got our we're gonna do our ping.
Definitely want to ping with the shoulder cannon. Oh, and pro tip with the gauntlet gun. I think this was discussed on one of the boards in the SCL Discord when War Machine first came out. But you can actually just exhaust Gauntlet Gun to just generate an ammo counter. You don't have to, because it's exhaust Gauntlet Gun and then generate a resource and place an ammo counter. The resource gets wasted, but you can just generate an ammo counter with it just by exhausting it.
Right. So we can do that now.
Yep.
Is what you're saying, and then save up those ammo counters because there's no reason to do more this turn. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of turn 1. And let's just have a quick look at what we have before moving on. We get another global logistics, which is we already have set up next turn, but we could consider if we want to reshuffle that.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man's going to pull out another event or another upgrade. Do we have 1 cost upgrades?
Yeah, we have the missile launcher that we could pull out, which might be pretty good in this case.
Okay. So we potentially got some good things in. I mean, we already know what's happening this turn, so we could actually already plot out our next turn. But let's not bother. Um, so the start of the villain turn, villain phase, we get 1 threat on there. He's going to attack, and our plan was just to straight up take it and not do anything about it.
Yeah, correct.
And so we get shock. We get 3 whole damage, which is a completely recoverable amount of damage. We got an encounter card. Let's see if I remember what it was. I think he's going to heal 1. He's going to heal 1, and we have navigated our first villain phase.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
All right. So now with this turn, I'm trying to think. So yeah, like you were saying, global logistics doesn't have as much value if we use that. Still does have some value in that we can like look at the next 2 cards after that and see what's going on there. But I'm trying to think. Let's see. Yeah, in this case, I think we're actually going to want to get out Iron Man and get a missile launcher out just for some more efficient damage, more efficient ways to use our ammo counters. And then, yeah, having an ally out with a 2/2 Statland is obviously amazing. So, yeah, let's go for that play. Let's just get those out, like right off the bat.
Right, and also just looking toward the future a little bit, since we're flipping, we know we're going to get an extra activation out of Iron Man as well. And so one of those things that's always tricky about 3 health allies is you often are blocking with them before you've managed to get your full use out of them. So playing Iron Man into a turn where we're going to flip means that by the end of next turn he'll have only 1 health left and can chump block. So that also ends up being pretty efficient.
Exactly.
And then he has 2 thwart, which is going to help us deal with the thwart that's going to build up on this turn.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Okay, so we're going to do 1, 2, 3, bring out Iron Man, and then you said we're searching for. Is it discard or deck? Yeah, it's discard or deck. Okay,
Cool.
we're searching for missile something.
Yeah, missile launcher, I believe, is the name of the card.
Missile launcher. There it is. Okay. So that we put it in our hand, we get to bring it out for 1, and this is exhaust missile launcher, remove 1 ammo counter from War Machine, deal 2 damage to an enemy. So this is just a little bit more efficient than what's happening with the shoulder cannon, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're just going to unload, right? We're just going to attack with Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 1, 2. We are going to, before we do anything else, we'll use our shoulder cannon at its kind of base. You don't have to pay anything for it. And then we'll use missile launcher for, this one is actually use a counter for 2. And then our gauntlet gun gets us another one of those. And then we can get another 6 damage out of the shoulder cannon.
Exactly. Oh, I think you did miss 1 damage with Iron Man, but yeah, other than that, that's perfect.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I don't know what I did, but yes, agreed. And then we said another 6 damage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for our 6 counters. And then we flip. Oh, we lost all our counters. And do we have... I guess we're going to recover.
Yeah, definitely want to recover. And then in terms of stuff that we want to shuffle back in, we're going to be able to do it twice, obviously, because we are going to end the other turn in there. So I'm thinking, let's see, we probably want to do targeted strike this turn, so we can deal with the threat that comes on next time, or like if we ever want to deal with side schemes in the future, we shuffle that first, and then repulsive beam after that.
Right. So just looking toward the future for folks who haven't already been playing this scenario a bunch, we're going to see break in and take in next turn, guaranteed, because we're gonna flip Rhino. So break in and take in is going to come out, and so targeted strike hits that thing perfectly right because that thing has 3 threat, in fact. So
Exactly. Yep.
we're just thinking about the future. We know that's definitely a thing we want to have. And I think that's everything, right? We did that. All good.
Yep. Yep. All good.
Okay, villain phase. So we're going to put 1 threat on here. He's going to scheme. He only has 1 base scheme plus the 1 that we already know. So we do have, some thwart we obviously have, or some threat we obviously have to deal with. And then we get our encounter card, which is going to be Sandman. The folks who've been maintaining the Octagon have really added in a lot of good quality of life things, right? Things that have toughness, they just get the tough out automatically and stuff. So there's been some really great development on this. I've been pretty impressed. All right, did we miss anything on the villain phase? I don't think so.
No, that's we're good.
Okay, so turn 3.
Hey.
We never even looked at our hand, actually, but that's because we already knew everything that was coming out. Oh my God. Okay, so just quick look at what we have, a bit of stock taking. We've got that targeted strike, which we know we're going to have an event, or we're going to have a scheme that's going to have 3 full auto, plausibly, but I mean, who knows? Upgraded chassis, it seems like at this point in the game, there's almost no way we're going to use it. Nick Fury, always tricky when you do have a handful of good cards, but we can one way or another and then make a decision there if we wanted to. Quake, and then one way or another. So this is, again, kind of pro tip for folks who haven't been playing this a bunch. When we advance Rhino, he pulls Break In and Taken out. So one way or another gets extra value on the turn that you would do that, because that side scheme, you're just pulling out and it was going to come out anyway. So you want to go in and do that. So this is pretty amazing setup for turn 3, in fact.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping for, to draw into this card on this turn. So that's absolutely perfect. We've only drawn 1 double resource so far, so Nick Fury might be a thing we can do after we one way or another. So yeah.
Yep. And then we're going to repulsor beam back into the deck.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And we have nothing else that we want to do while we're in Alter Ego, so we can do this action now and then flip, I think, right? Because again, we're gonna wait on the Nick Fury call until after we see what happens with one way or another.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we flip. We've got Iron Man at 2. Okay, I think we one way or another before we do anything else. There's nothing standing in our way, is there?
No, yeah, so we definitely want to do that to get out Breaking and Taken.
Where are we? There we are. So this thing has what is now known as Hinder, so it comes out with 3. We get 1, 2, 3 cards out of our one way or another. Okay, we got our munitions bunker, which at this point in the game is probably not going to pay off. But and interesting, we haven't seen our private investigator, so we're not going to see further cards out of dealing with this. So okay, what do we have? We don't have guard. We want to hit Rhino with 3 damage. We're going to hit targeted strike after we actually flip Rhino. And then our allies, Quake, which does damage. She's not much of a thwarter. Wiccan, which does... He's kind of weird, but he's not really much of a thwarter either. So we don't have a bunch of extra allies that are going to help us with our thwarting. Fury actually seems good from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree. He can help Iron Man clear off the main scheme, which will be pretty great. So I think that is probably going to be the play. Basically, we're going to want to do... Let's keep Wiccan out of that. So I'm going to say we're going to... I think I want to use Munitions Bunker, Iron Heart, Quake, and upgraded Chassis to pay for Nick Fury. Wiccan is really nice because I was kind of saying at the beginning of this that pinning threat off is kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
And he can pin threat off and then do damage on top of that, which is pretty awesome. And he's only 2 cost. He's just one of the best allies in the game, in my opinion, too. So Yeah, so let's pay for Nick Fury with those 4 cards and see what we draw.
Right. And then just the other thing, looking at Wiccan, calling back to what I was saying before, he's a 3 health ally. But since we have Fury already in the way to do our first chump block, then Wiccan is helpful from that perspective. So good. So we brought up Fury for those 4 cards. We draw 3. We did not ever draw into one of our double resources. Determination. So this works out in terms of between Wiccan, Determination, and Fury. We can clear the main scheme threat. We can use Targeted Strike to do that. And then we've got ammo counters coming out the wazoo. So let's just do a quick accounting of resources. So Targeted Strike can happen with Gauntlet Gun, right?
Yep.
Okay. Wiccan we want to bring out, and that's going to be 2 cards. And where does that leave us? That leaves us with Repulsor Beam in terms of anything else we can do.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, so is there any argument to do this any other way to take advantage of the full auto? I think the 4 ammo counters, Repulsor Beam, between Repulsor Beam and Shoulder Cannon, I think the efficiency is actually not remarkably different.
Yeah, that's still a ton of damage either way you look at it, and I think getting Wiccan out is more important than getting the auto out in this case.
Okay, so
it's a lot of damage if we do both, but then we wouldn't have ammo to like paint off the tough or anything like that ahead of time. So,
right.
Well, I guess we just like with the first activation, but still, I still think this is a better play because Wiccan's just great.
So order of operations will ping off the tough because Wiccan could actually do more than 1 damage, and so we don't want to have to waste that on a tough. Then now the rest of it kind of doesn't matter a ton. We can.
Well, we gotta remember we have to get that 3 health off Rhino first before we use the Targeted Strike.
Oh yes, fully agreed. I was going to say we can Repulsor Beam with the Gauntlet Gun and just take out Sandman.
Oh yeah. We could definitely do that too. That's Order operations in that case actually doesn't matter at all. So That's a good call. Let's do that.
Okay, so Gauntlet Gun generates the resource to pay for it and then provides the ammo counter, so we don't actually have to add it. So that takes care of Sandman cleanly. Then we can use, so this is where we want to use a missile launcher and 1 of these to take him down to 1. Then we can actually do 1 with the shoulder cannon to ready it and use it to actually advance Rhino. Right? We haven't screwed up order of operations yet.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, so next villain, he's got 15. Breaking and Taken. Oh, it shows up. Great. Now we can actually bring out Wiccan for these 2. This determination is going to take 1 threat off the main scheme. We can Targeted Strike, which costs us 1 ammo counter, and remove 3 threat from a scheme, and so we can deal with Breaking and Taken. And then that we had to pay for that thing with our full auto. Then the rest of the team, I guess, can just go in and do stuff. So Nick Fury and Wiccan will do thwarting. It doesn't really matter between the similar allies, but 1, 2, 3. Then we don't even know what's in the deck anyway because we haven't seen it for a bit, right? So this is just going to be a surprise. So he does 2.
Not bad. That's a pretty good get, I would say.
Okay, so that's 2 damage from Wiccan, and then we do another 2 damage from Iron Man. We can keep our last ammo counters because who knows what we actually need to deal with next turn, and then just do another 2 attack, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are fully set up to end it this coming turn, I would say. Obviously,
I would say so. Yeah.
Obviously, things could surprise us, but it feels like we're set up.
I definitely agree. We'll see. We'll see what happens here.
And interestingly, we didn't see a first turn one way or another. So we got the one way or another on the break and a taken turn, but we might only ever use one way or another and still finish it in 4 turns, right? So that's pretty good.
I would say so. Yeah, like I said, we don't know what encounter cards are coming up. So if worst case scenario, we might be going into a turn 5 if like everything goes horribly. But even then, I think we're in a pretty good spot. So let's see what's up.
Right. It's hard to predict what a surge train can ultimately do. So we're on villain phase 3. He gets a threat. He comes to attack. We block with Fury because he's going away otherwise.
Mhm.
And this attack gains overkill. Okay, so he's got 3 plus 1, so he's got 4. 2 are going through Nick Fury and coming to War Machine. Okay, that's
But also not horrible.
not terrible. Ideally, because we do have allies out, we might be able to actually flip and recover or get enough health on the board that it doesn't matter.
Yep, exactly.
All right, and then our encounter card, this is where we don't want to see Surge, and we successfully did not see Surge. That is a very generous encounter deck.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
let's have a look at what we have here. We're you kind of can use Wiccan again to do some stuff. We're going to want to ping Tough off. We don't actually have the damage in hand to quite to finish it. So if we used our activation for 2 and Iron Man for another 2, we've got 3 extra damage due to our ammo counters. So that is 7 damage.
8 damage because we can use Gauntlet Gun to generate another ammo counter.
Good call.
So we might just have enough if we get Blade out to actually.
And we could
If we get Blade
use
out.
Power of Justice to activate with Blade.
Mm-hmm.
So if we did what you're suggesting, we could get Endurance, and we could definitely have 2 more health than we need.
Mm-hmm.
Targeted strike, we don't need to bother because we're going to do the Wiccan 1 damage on there, 1 thwart anyway, right?
Yep, exactly.
So the other version of this is we Agent Coulson into does Spycraft have a fist resource? Did you have Spycraft in this one?
I do have Spycraft in this one, but I can't remember for the life of me what it has. Might be in the discard pile. I can't remember getting it.
It's not. I just checked.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah, I can't remember if it does, but if we use Blade to finish him off, it won't matter anyway because he doesn't get discarded until after the activation. So if we use him to actually, yeah. So we don't necessarily need that fist resource there.
I'm curious though. I'm just going to look it up real quick here.
Yeah, fair.
Because I feel like I'm picturing it in my brain. It does have one. It does actually.
Right.
But you're right. In this case, it does not specifically matter. So we could use Agent Coulson because if we're going to use an activation from Iron Man anyway, we could use Agent Coulson and Blade, and that just gives us 1 more ping damage. So I guess we need to actually carefully count, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying we're going to have 3 ammo counters if we use our Gauntlet Gun, Shoulder Cannon.
Mm-hmm.
The first activation is going to take care of Tough. So what we need to do is then Wiccan has 1. If we assume that we get no more damage out of Wiccan, does this thing all work? We get 2 damage out of War Machine, 2 damage out of Iron Man, 3 damage out of Shoulder Cannon, so that's 7. Oh.
Yeah, then we just
9.
need Blade's activation. We're good.
Well, we don't need... Oh, yeah, sorry, Missile Launcher makes it 4 damage out of our 3 counters, so we're still 1 short, so we could then Blade. So then, in that case, it doesn't matter if we Endurance or... And
Yeah. Agent
and
Coulson and turrets will actually be the exact same value. So
okay,
yeah.
so we shoulder cannon to ping off the tough. We use Wiccan to just tell us how this all goes before we do anything else. And we got 1 whole damage. We Gauntlet Gun for free, and then use Missile Launcher for 1/2, and then Shoulder Cannon for another 1/2, and then we just have to come up with our final 4 damage, which means we could flip to get 1 or 2 more health. Right?
Yeah. I guess that is 100% accurate. Yeah, let's actually do that.
Okay, so we bring out these 2 jokers. We got an endurance. 1, 2, 3. Blade has 3. We can actually pay Power of Justice to keep Blade, and then Iron Man can attack and not go away.
Nice.
Okay, so we flip. We shuffle a card in that doesn't matter. We tap to get our up to 13 damage. We attack with Blade for 2, and we pay this so we don't have to lose him. And then we attack with Iron Man, and he finishes it off. So we ended up with 18 health on turn 4. Pretty good.
That is a pretty good win right there. I mean, like you said, we got definitely a little bit lucky with the encounter cards and such. We mostly saw Rhino cards, which is always a huge plus. But the one Anachronauts card that we saw, we were able to just I think take care of with global logistics. But yeah, overall that was pretty great. This definitely went extremely well in terms of us being able to get shoulder cannon out turn 1. That is usually a good sign for like a very fast win with this deck, just because the damage is so ridiculously consistent.
Yeah.
You can just worry about taking threat off and kind of managing that, and like staying safe with things like counterintelligence and all that good jazz. So yeah, no, this definitely went extremely well. This is definitely one of the better games that I have seen like in all of my testing with this deck. So
interesting.
yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, so the big thing is we didn't get punished by the standard 2 deck in a severe way. We saw 2 damage from that overkill, and that was it, right? That was the only standard 2-ish thing that actually hit us. We didn't get any surges. We didn't get anything else elsewhere.
Yeah. No, like I said, no Anarchicot's cards, no surge cards or no surge trains from any of that from the standard 2 set. So yeah, we definitely got lucky there. But like I said, global logistics and how we kind of handled that definitely helped us kind of make our own luck a little bit there. So that was nice. But yeah, no, that was an absolutely great game. Everything kind of lined up, especially with the one way or another. The turn we were going to flip them anyway. Yeah, that was a great game.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, I went in a little bit pessimistic on that initial draw. We didn't have a one way or another. I was going to like, oh, this is going to be painful. But like you said, that shoulder cannon is just a world of difference in terms of how much work gets done, right? We got so much damage consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, if you can get shoulder cannon out early, that's like most of the damage you need. And you don't even have to worry about drawing into things like the full auto or anything like that. Yeah, it's definitely it seems like it's a less efficient way to use ammo counters at first, but that consistency just helps you so much deal with literally everything else that he throws at you.
It's a huge difference if you're flipping every turn or not, right? If you are not playing Justice or playing a scenario that just really doesn't let you flip, or you're playing an aspect that doesn't let you flip, if you're always in hero form for 3 or 4 turns in a row before you can flip, and you really actually have to be much more judicious with your ammo counters, that shoulder cannon's use is just way different.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I guess the one thing that we were a little bit risky about with flipping is that when we flipped, we didn't know what the encounter card was going to be, and we still had 2 dark dealings in the deck. I have tended to go a little bit more risky just because the chance of actually drawing into dark dealings in that exact situation, one isn't absolutely, it's a pretty low chance overall, and two, with the high variance and boost cards in the deck, it's possible that even if he schemes and then draws into dark dealings, they still won't hit the cap. So with all that in mind, I like being set up with like a counterintelligence or a spycraft just to be safe if any of that is going to happen when you do flip. But for the most part, even if I don't have those insurances, then I usually like flipping anyway, just because losing to a dark dealings when you do flip is like just such a relatively low chance in this scenario, in my opinion.
Well, no, we knew we had Sandman on our flip. We were
Oh, we
safe.
did.
We knew we were
Oh,
safe even.
my bad. I forgot we set up all 4 cards in that case. Yeah, that was totally my fault. Yeah, just setting up those 4 cards, like just set us up perfectly to do exactly what we needed to do and do it extremely freaking quickly. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we played like we were playing me. Not that's nice and safe, nice and safe. Real cautious like around the corners. Anyway, very cool. MathyNoodles, you want to tell us about this She-Hulk deck?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just finished with the War Machine game. If you viewed that first, this is actually running a very similar package to that deck in a lot of different ways. One way or another, a lot of thwarting events to make up for her lack of base thwarting in her base kit there. The only real difference, and also a lot of allies with like high thwart, again, just to help with any kind of burst threat or side schemes that come out, anything like that. And the only difference between that and the War Machine deck is that instead of going with Global Logistics, which is a very good card if you can get it off consistently, but I didn't really find you could do that with She-Hulk as much, just because she has no base access to shield with her identity card.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I'm going with some more readying action, so like Ready to Rumble, I believe it's Justice Serve, the 1-cost
Yep.
Justice upgrade, where after you thwart everything from a scheme, you ready your hero. So her ready's pretty valuable, does a lot of damage with their attack of 3. So yeah, that's pretty good there. With this deck, you can definitely be a lot more liberal about actually flipping every single turn. You definitely always want to get the value out of flipping for her, because it's basically 1 thwart and 2 damage every single time you flip.
Yep.
Plus, with her 4 hero hand size, you definitely want to be getting the additional resources on top of it.
You don't want to be stuck in hero for very long.
No.
Okay, so we have an initial hand. This is right. I mean, almost every no, every single hero I've been playing has been using, kind of some combination of Nick Fury one way or another and clear the area. So this is a really familiar looking hand. So typically what you're looking at is you want to one way or another into the 2 threat scheme, then you can clear the area and get that back. So then the net cards out of doing that is actually only 1 additional card. You're trading those 2 cards for 3 cards, but is that right? 0, or is it actually even flat? No, you get 3 cards, clear the area. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so you net a card.
Which is pretty solid in terms of like getting through your deck and trying to just like find more damage to end the scenario a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And doing everything once. So in this case, just looking at the opening hand we have here, like you were saying, definitely want to keep the one way or another, clear the area, and probably also Nick Fury, because we might draw into some double resources and such.
Yep.
Or it might just be better to just play him afterwards anyway, just to get the additional cards out. But I'm thinking we might want to actually keep 1-2 punch, just because that is some good extra damage for her. That is very efficient. Yeah, it's just another 1-cost ready, which is pretty good for her with the 3 attack. So in this case, Power of Justice isn't doing us any good. here right away. It might
Agreed.
if we draw into something, but like, meh, why risk it? And then Endurance, we have another one in the deck, so we can just ditch that.
Right. So, yeah, I think 1-2 punch we could probably turn into a 10-minute conversation if we want to keep it. You're voting keep it. I'll say sure. I'll follow your lead. So we'll just do that. And her alter ego ability is that one fewer threat, but of course that doesn't matter because we're going to flip. So we draw up, and oh, the draw gods are telling us should have kept Power Justice because that Venom ally is amazing, but no worries.
Okay.
So we flip. When you flip, you get to deal 2 damage to an enemy. So Rhino takes that 2 damage right away. And then we just kind of go into our regular chain, right? There's nothing else on our hand that we need to get ahead of with that. So we do our one way or another. We go grab. I always forget what this card's called, but I know. Thank you. If my family were on this call, they would talk about how bad my memory is. It's actually remarkable that I do a podcast and can remember the names of things at all. So one way or another, we bring that out. We get 1, 2, 3. You got your ready, so you got some more of these efficient readies set up. So we're now going to want to go into clear the area because we do want to see what card pops out of this. However, there's an argument to do Nick Fury. Oh no, you don't have. I remember looking at this and I was like, this is a 50-card deck and there's no skilled investigators. There's no skilled investigators, so we don't even. The thing I was going to say, maybe we want to do something else first. We don't want to do it first because we're not even drawing into a skilled investigator anyway.
Yeah. With skilled investigator, I don't know. For some reason, I was testing it out with skilled investigator, and I just didn't always find it super amazing for some reason. I can't really remember why. It was always I sometimes I played it, and especially with her 4-card hands, even if you get the extra draw, that's not always necessarily gonna be extremely helpful. And between that and the fact that with a bigger deck and only running one copy of it, you're probably there's not a huge chance that you're going to draw into it before you actually start getting side schemes out, especially when you're trying to finish the games pretty quickly. So there's definitely an argument to be made that it should be included in there, but in my personal testing, I didn't actually find it that much valuable in practice, even though it definitely seems really good.
I mean, I'm of the opinion if you're going to include it, you include 2 for this kind of deck anyway. So that's where I looked at you already being at 50 cards and I'm being like, well, he couldn't find space for 2. That makes sense, right? That's a bit different. Okay, so let's have a quick look through our hand to think about what we want to do for clear the area because what do we have? So we have, if we're going to play Nick Fury, that's just going to be a net of 2 cards. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beyond that. So we could feasibly Nick Fury, clear the area, and Venom this turn.
That is true, and that would just be Venom is just damage on a stick if you can get him out early and keep threat completely cleared off, which sometimes with flipping every turn it can be a little bit annoying to keep the threat all the way off, but that's usually what we're trying to do, and when it does happen, he is just an absurdly ridiculous amount of damage. So
yeah.
I think, we should probably try for that in this case. We just keep Ready to Rumble. I think we can use any of the other allies other than Ready to Rumble to pay for clear the area. If we get a double resource, we might just want to keep that in our hand or something like that. So.
Yeah. Just thinking about what we might want to keep. So agreed. So, and who knows how many double resources we ultimately might end up with. Okay, so we clear the area with Blade. So that takes care of crowd control. We get a card because we finished it off. We got Superhuman Strength. Knowing that we're going to play Nick Fury, Superhuman Strength value doesn't make any sense this turn. So if we bring out Nick Fury and you're saying keep Ready to Rumble as a hold,
now I'm thinking about it, maybe keep 1/2 punch as a hold. It's a little bit less of
Less
it's a little
conditional.
bit less conditional to get the
Sure.
ready out, in my opinion. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's also a discussion to have. Like, do you keep your Ironheart or something like that to be able to enable further card cycling and getting an ally out and stuff like that too. So, but 1/2 punch seems perfectly reasonable. So that's our 4 cards. We're going to ditch, and 1, 2, 3. We draw. The magic double resource, as you predicted, did show up. So we can now here. Okay, so now I think we actually have a bit of a discussion because counterintelligence as a leading into a turn where we're looking to flip might actually be even a better keep, or one way or another, and the card draw that comes from it. So I don't know what you're liking right now.
So, trying to actually think here. Yeah, no, I think we want to keep one way or another because we've got so much damage on the board right now. We could very easily flip him for damage next turn, which means what we could do is we could, if we're able to do that next turn, we can use one way or another to actually get out, break in and take in, and then flip him to his next stage after that. So,
Right,
yeah, I like
really thinking about that sequence because the issue is if we're going to flip him anyway, then there's no penalty for one way or another.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
So,
Love it. Love it. Okay, so there's no threat here. Venom is going to get to attack for 3 and only take the 1 consequential. She's going to attack for 3, so that's 6, and then Nick Fury is going to attack for 2, that's 8. So we get 1 consequential and 8 damage. Okay.
Definitely next turn. So yeah. Okay, awesome.
Hand size 4. You ready for this?
Let's do it.
It never feels good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who cares? Whatever. We got it. Impede actually hits what we want to do pretty well. Okay, so villain turn 1. Rhino gets a threat. He attacks. We block with Nick Fury. Stop me if I am about to do anything dumb.
Oh, you're good.
And Anachronauts. Great time to see
Nice.
that. And we get an encounter card. And our encounter card is Shadows of the Past. Oh, exciting.
Right.
So we bring all these out. We've got Titania. And we've got our side scheme. So we've definitely got some stuff we got to take care of.
Yeah.
This actually puts, of the Shadows of the Past, this actually puts a lot more stuff to deal with on the board than a lot of the other ones do.
Yeah, very much so. Pretty annoying. So in this case, trying to think what we might want to do. I think we still probably want to one way or another just to get the extra card draw, but we already have so much threat to deal with at the same time that might be difficult. But,
well, so just, I mean, looking at what we have, we can one way or another Venom and Eros to take care of the personal challenge. Yeah, I guess the big question is, will we be trying to advance Rhino this turn anyway?
Yeah, that's the question. If we flip this turn, man, I think we should actually just draw cards first, because, well, yeah, this is definitely a more difficult one to deal with for sure.
Yeah, I'm also a little bit torn. Okay, so let's think through what we do if we don't one way or another. Right, we're either just playing Eros or Impede. We haven't played a card yet. So there's actually an argument to Impede first to get an extra card out of it, and then one way.
Yeah, I mean, it's not definitely not my favorite, but it is. I think it is the play here just to get that extra resource. like I said, it's usually anti-synergistic with one way or another because you usually want to one way or another and then impede whatever comes out. But impede's still going to get the full value and more if we actually use it first. So let's do that actually. Let's impede the side scheme. It sucks that it's going to leave.
You know what? All of our discussions about Impede's a main scheme only thwart and card.
It is the main scheme. Oh yeah, that is totally fair.
So
okay,
that undoes lots of conversation we've been having.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Okay, well that is totally fair. Yeah, in that case, what we're going to want to do is definitely one way or another first, and get.
We're going for it. We're going for it, folks.
Yeah, but now we can at least get arrows out at least to clear off some of the stuff. We might have to use Venom for his activation on thwarting to take an extra consequential damage, but that's honestly probably fine. He still is worth it, even if he has to take it in extra consequential damage. Let's see. Okay.
Okay, so we have kind of stinky here. Not the best hand for what we want to do. We haven't taken any damage, so we're not even looking at Gamma Slam.
Yep.
Impede one off there is stinky too. So Eros and I mean, I guess there's an okay. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, sorry. I was actually just gonna say we definitely want to get Eros out there. We know, and this is not something I ever thought would happen, but we might actually want a legal practice to get the additional threat off. Because Impede's not valuable here because it only hits the main scheme. Gamma Slam's not valuable here because it does nothing. Ground Stomp is just like not where we want to be damage wise. Only one minion out. So, yeah. Let's arrows for the 2 threat. We can get. We can at least take care of that. And then in terms of flipping Rhino, we might want to take care of that too here. So let's see if we have the
So if we're gonna flip, we're just gonna eat the one threat from Titania.
Yeah, that's not horrible. Yeah, we're already removing. We're already preventing the one threat, and his scheme is usually pretty low. So it's a little bit risky just in case we get a dark dealing here, but that's probably what we're going to want to have to do in this particular situation is just kind of go for it. So, and actually trying to think too, because on top of that too, we actually need an extra damage to flip Rhino. So I was saying legal practice before, but we might actually just want to ground stomp so we can flip him, take out break and take and prevent the extra encounter card, and then kind of go from there. Definitely not ideal in this situation, but that is just how it goes sometimes.
It's pretty exciting though.
Yeah, that's a word for it.
Okay, so we're gonna ground stomp to take 1 damage to each enemy. We brought out Eros, and so we now have. Oh, I did 2 damage to Rhino accidentally. Oops. So what we're looking at is we want to get rid of Breaking and Taken after we advance it because we want to not take that. Taking the extra encounter card is kind of the worst choice out of everything we can deal with here. So we kind of doesn't really matter which combination of these things we're doing because we're just going to do the activations anyway, right? So we advance him with She-Hulk.
Yeah.
He's back with 15. Breaking and Taken comes out, and then we can just use our 2 allies to clear it, and we're going to flip. With a somewhat scary looking board, but as you pointed out, you do get the kind of 1 thwart relief from being in Jennifer Walters' form.
Yeah. So the risk of anything truly awful happening is honestly pretty low, especially with that in mind. So I think, I mean, fingers crossed, but I think we'll actually be okay here.
Okay. Let's see what we got. Okay. Um, so villain turn 2 gets a threat, but he doesn't. And then he goes to scheme for 1+1 plus uh discard a
Discard.
here we go. Okay.
Boostring.
Random discard. We lost Impede. Okay, so how
Plus.
exhaust
Jesus
character you
Christ.
control. I guess.
Just arrows.
I
Uh,
guess.
yeah, less valuable activation than Venom.
Um,
Plus.
there we go. Okay, so we had 1, 2, 3, 4 plus this
Ah,
one
well,
here.
ha, well, that
Okay.
was a loss. All right. That's
No, no, it's
unfortunate.
a 7. It's a 7. We're we're
Oh,
we're
thank
one
God.
away.
Okay.
We're one away. We're
Yeah.
one away. Okay, so if we get a okay, surge. So it's stringing us along, keeping the tension high.
Yeah.
Heals 4 damage. No, it gets
Surge.
surge. Okay. Dark dealings. There we go.
Oh my God, you got to be kidding me.
All
Okay,
right.
well, that is indeed the risk of playing the standard two. I will say that is really hilarious that we got this recorded because I've probably played 20 test games between War Machine and She-Hulk this round, and nothing like that has literally ever happened to me in any of those games. Um, yeah, it was just a really bad sequencing of cards, but that does go to show you that even when you have like a pretty solid deck you've tested a lot, like when you're playing standard two, that's just like something that can happen. You get surge trains out of control, especially with the Arachnonauts. You could get boost trains out of control, and it's all just no bueno. Yeah, yeah.
Hilarious.
I mean,
So
I would say one thing I definitely learned from this is, I was running Impede before thinking it could hit side schemes, and that is actually not the case. Because I mean, as many games as I played, reading is still difficult apparently.
well, it
But
is one of those things where and I've had this experience a lot where talking through your games, which it's kind of recording them or doing team ups and stuff like that, and actually having to read the cards out loud, that it is amazing. As we always see everybody talking about on the SCL forums, like, oh, turns out actually reading the card tells you how it works.
I feel like that happens way more often than a lot of people would think. But yeah, just going back and thinking about this, I think maybe doing the one way or the other was just like a little bit too risky in this situation. You know, having to take that out with the three thwart and like the fairly limited resources that we had was definitely a big risk. Especially when there's a lot of really bad like hero cards to draw into, which we definitely did. I think thinking back on it in this situation, we probably should have just tried to focus our resources into taking out Titania, maybe getting Eros out to get the threat down on that side scheme, so we could potentially take it out the turn after that, and then just kind of going from there. But yeah, like I said, that is indeed the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Never had a 4 boost train before, literally in any of my test games. Yeah, what was that? 4 boosts and then 3 surges
Yeah,
or 2 surges?
that was pretty neat actually. I mean, there's another thing that I don't know if you've noticed as well, but I don't. I tend to play a little riskier in my practice games than I do in my actual games, right? Where I have a much more serious consideration of, which of these two things is not necessarily going to make things go faster, but is going to minimize my chance to lose.
Mm-hmm.
right? Which we clearly didn't make that choice, right? That discussion of one way or another, and then flipping and all that stuff. The knowing we didn't have any protection from scheming set up before our flip kind of meant that was not the path to reduce your chance to lose. So that, in an official game, I might have paused longer to think about which thing I wanted to do.
No, yeah, that is extremely fair. And I mean, like I said before, I think like we were kind of saying before, I think She-Hulk might want to have one of the most brutal um, Shadows of the Past villains. I mean, that is a lot of threat to deal with in a hero that doesn't really have a lot of thwarting in her base kit.
Yep.
And then 6 health on a minion is always just going to be completely insane. So yeah, that was just straight up bad luck on our part. Bad draws by like a significant portion, but that is one of the risks you're taking when you're actually playing Standard 2. I've played a lot of Standard 2, and like occasionally, very occasionally, it'll just lose. You'll just straight up lose like that without anything you can actually do. It's not always scaled the best for solo play in that regard,
Agreed.
but it is in my opinion, it's been really interesting because those higher risks like actually have caused me to rethink some deck building stuff in really interesting ways, and I've really liked that a lot personally. But at the same time, there are some cases where it's just like absolutely ridiculous, and I understand why people just don't ever want to do it at all because yeah, it's just it could just get crazy.
Well, I mean, I give credit to all the folks who are interested in or happy to engage with Standard 2 or Expert 2 or, any of those combinations in Solo Champions League, because I get a personal, really big sense of frustration when kind of I lose for reasons that are beyond my own decision making in that sort of situation, and so I just remove myself from that being an option. It just the in a regular casual game, I don't, I'm perfectly happy to deal with it whatever way. In Solo Champions League, I take it just seriously enough that that's just a frustrating point for me.
Absolutely. And I have been trying to push myself in playing like a lot of Standard 2 and Expert 2 stuff, but there are certain situations where it's just like I'm just not going to deal with that. Like specifically in round 5 of season 10 when we were
Ah,
doing Doctor Strange versus Ronan.
yeah,
I actually did Expert 2 just because we had the ability to cancel out encounter cards, but Standard 2,
yeah,
specifically with the steady and, Doctor Strange's kit being revolving a lot around like confusing, stunning, and such like that, and those being so valuable against Ronan's activations, like that was just a level of ridiculousness that I was not prepared to deal with in one of the hardest rounds that we've literally ever had in the game in Solo Champions League. So, um, but yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. There are just like basically auto loss situations that you can run into in Standard 2 at a lot higher variance than with Standard 1 in a lot of cases. So it's very understandable. I know for a fact that one of these days I'm going to be playing my Standard 2 games and something like this is like my official games and something like this is going to happen. It's going to ruin my freaking 100% win rate I had with the league. And on that day, I will probably put down Standard 2 for a hot minute.
yeah, yeah. Well,
It,
you know, uh,
until that happens.
although this is not how statistics work, we got it out of the way here.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, very cool, MathyNoodles. Thank you for joining on the team up play. I mean, sometimes it feels good to get a loss out there too. So we we can be happy that we're unleashing this into the world as well. And thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, I mean, what do they say? You learn a lot more from losing than winning, and I think that was definitely the case in this situation. So definitely happy to like just get this out there, have the discussions and everything, so so people other people can learn from our mistakes in the future as well.
Right, love it. Okay, all right. Ciao, everybody.